Hello students and welcome to the YouTube channel of MH-CET Law by IMS. This is your verbal ability mentor Sanjana ma'am, and today I have come up with an analysis of sample paper 2 for the MH-CET 5-year LLB examination, right? I'm also assuming that almost everybody of you has already purchased the set of 6 papers that MH-CET came up with, and I think it should be in all circumstances be a close reflection of the actual level of difficulty of the paper, or if not that, at least it should also help us, as a guide to let us know the kinds of topics that we should be thoroughly prepared with. All right, I've already done the analysis of the English language section for sample mock 1. This is going to be the analysis for sample mock 2, and having said that, let's take a look at the questions that have been asked. So as is the case, 24 questions in all, and we have the first two sets of questions given in the form of reading comprehension passages. Take a look at the first passage, very short, very brief in nature. It talks about euthanasia. It goes on to define it. It talks about what passive euthanasia is, what active euthanasia is. And then it says that recently in the United States, there have been numerous cases of active euthanasia, which involve the deliberate killing of ill or incapacitated persons by relatives or friends who plead that they can no longer bear to see their loved ones suffer. And then a slightly different perspective too has been offered by the author here, which is that even though such killings are a crime, and by that I think by extension it means active euthanasia in particular, the perpetrators are often dealt with leniently by a legal system, and the media usually portrays them as compassionate heroes who take personal risks to save another from unbearable suffering. So very simple passage and all. Let's focus on the questions, discuss them one by one. The first question is here. The media usually portrays the perpetrators as lenient, right? And they portray them as compassionate heroes as well. So, right off the bat, you just have to mark option A as a correct option choice. It can't be criminals, it can't be messiah, but it cannot be good Samaritan as well. Good Samaritan is just a person who selflessly helps others. But in the context of this particular passage, because compassionate heroes is already given, we're going to go with option A for this question. Take a look at the next question. What do you think the passage is talking about? Please pick the correct option that justifies the given passage the most, which is essentially asking us to focus on the main idea. It's not like the passage is entirely focusing on the negatives of euthanasia, right? I think choosing A would be like choosing a very extreme option choice, right? It's all about how euthanasia is a bad, because in the initial part of the passage, we're just sort of very clinically assessing the meaning, the definition of euthanasia. We're not labeling euthanasia right off the bat as something which is, inherently inhumane. So cancel A. The passage does talk about active and passive euthanasia, that's given, but it does not pick a side either in favor or against the idea of euthanasia, which is actually quite the main idea if we were to look at it. I think option B is supposed to be the correct option choice. Obviously, we cannot choose option D. By now, we have already practiced enough number of questions through the classes, through the lectures, through your own preparation as well. So this is something which is very absurd. The passage does talk about active and passive euthanasia, but primarily tells us a downside of euthanasia. And which exact downside of euthanasia are we talking about in the passage? And this is a question for the ones who think C should be the correct option choice, right? Which part in the passage talks about the negative of euthanasia, that it has led to a lot of chaos or a problem of a certain nature? Since that's not given, B is the safest option choice according to me. Take a look at the next question. Which one of the following countries have more cases of active euthanasia? I think the only reference that has been given in the passage is that of the United States of America with respect to how recently there have been numerous cases of active euthanasia. So the best option choice becomes B, USA. Next question. What do you mean by the word perpetrator? Perpetrator refers to somebody who sort of commits a crime, commits a misfeasance of sorts. So the best option choice is D, a person who carries out a harmful, an illegal, or an immoral act. And the word euthanasia means mercy killing. You just take this from this part of the passage, right? You don't have to choose anything else. Let's take a look at the next passage. The next passage primarily focuses on the importance of education with a special emphasis on the significance of higher education. Especially from this passage or paragraph onwards, we are focusing more on the importance of higher education, right? Overall, again, a very simple passage. Main theme of the passage is question number 6. It's about higher education. We're not talking about pre-primary education or intermediate education, and we're not entirely talking about the whole education system. There is a special emphasis which has been made with respect to higher education. Therefore, B is the best option choice. Blank, and society can provide the foundation for a knowledge society and inclusive society. Directly taken, I think like such questions should not be leaving us with any scope for making silly mistakes, right? So option A. The passage is based on dash style of the passage. So we do have a question on tones. It is definitely critical in the part where we're talking about the quiet crisis in higher education. But overall, it's also analytical, and therefore, a combination of critical and analytical should be the best option choice, according to me. We're not quite comparing it with the higher education in some other countries, right? So, it cannot have a comparative tone, right? So, the better option choice, or the best one here in this case, becomes option C. Let's take a look at the questions which are based on grammar. Now we have questions on adjectives, positive degree, comparative degree, superlative degree. Now please read the instructions of the questions very carefully. Choose a sentence that changes the degree of comparison. Now which degree per se is not given, which actually tells us that the answer might be slightly different. Original sentence is, she's the fastest runner in the team, which is already superlative degree. No other runner in the team is as fast as she is, which actually keeps the meaning intact. And this, however, is a positive degree, which is a good option because we have to choose the sentence and changes the degree of comparison. And in this particular option, we have a comparative degree, right? So, on the whole, we have two correct options, both A and B, right? So option D is the best option choice because in both these options, the degree of comparison is different. Option C slightly changes the meaning. Here we're talking about that she's the fastest runner in the team. But C says she's one of the fastest runners, which actually changes the meaning. The next question is based on vocabulary. We have synonym for legitimate. So the synonym for legitimate is legal. That's the correct definition of legitimate. It cannot be right, it cannot be correct, it cannot be true, right? Even though all four of them pretty much can come under the same category, but then again, there is a difference in terms of the degree, and the actual meaning of the word also is something you should be looking into. So option A is the best option choice. Next question. A ruler who uses force in order to make people obey him is called a dictator. Option A. Therefore, it cannot be a diplomat because we are talking about somebody using force, which means the very term has to have a negative connotation to it. It cannot be capitalist because capitalism is not always the use of force, and it can't be a king because a king can be really caring for the people, right? So, option A. Very simple question, students. Now we have a question on preposition. There is in fact, it cannot be of fact, it cannot be with fact, it cannot be on fact. Again, super easy question that the mock has included. All right, now voice is very important. Active voice, passive voice. Please prepare for this topic thoroughly. The teacher is correcting the assignments, and the exact passive voice would be the assignments are being corrected by the teacher, making option B the best option choice. Again, we have an antonym for ancestor, and the correct antonym or opposite would be descendant. It cannot be an heir. An heir is not necessarily the exact antonym for ancestor. A lot of you might feel confused, but when we're talking about ancestors, then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the descendants, and therefore A is the best option choice. Now, we also have a question on spellings and the correct spelling of surveillance. It's also important that you pronounce it correctly, would be D. This is wrong because it's VEIL, right? This is absolutely incorrect. This in itself contains a no, which is so conspicuous here, right? So option A is wrong. Next question, we have to identify the exclamatory sentence, which right off the bat, you can choose option A, uses an interjection. Option A is the best option choice. No other sentence here uses an exclamation mark. Again, another question on spellings and super easy questions. I mean, like scoring a full 24 and 24 should not be a difficult feat at all. If everybody is going to write this paper, I would expect every student, like each and every student who's going to attempt the exam, and should a passage or questions of a similar nature be asked, I think everybody will be able to score full marks here. So the correct option choice is argument. All right, now we have a couple of idioms. To bite the bullet means to finally take the risk and do something which otherwise seems difficult to us. And something that's in alignment with my exclamation of the idiom would be option A: to endure a difficult or unpleasant situation bravely. Right? To act hastily without thinking is not the meaning of it. To get rid of unnecessary things again, you really have to, because in the lack of a context here, we don't have the idiom being used in a sentence also to give us context. You just have to know the actual meaning of the idiom: to endure a difficult or unpleasant situation bravely. Act of killing a particular community is genocide. Super easy question again. Another question on idioms: spill the beans. To spill the beans simply means to reveal a secret, right? To let the cat out of the bag. Another idiom for that. So option A is the best option choice. Again, a question on grammar, but this time around it's more so based on a particular concept here. Article the is used. It's used before the names of mountains, rivers, right? The Himalayas, the Andes. To particularize a person or thing, obviously we need to give reference to it previously as well. To speak of one previously referred to, and therefore the best option choice is option D, all A, B, and C. Next question. Now, this is a question based on spellings again, but the problem is that in this particular case, unanimous is correctly spelled, and at the same time, anonymous is also correctly spelled. So I think this particular case, obviously, there is a problem with the question per se, but if you were to make a choice between these two options, I would go with unanimous, because when we take a look at option B and C, they're sort of referring to the word unanimous, albeit the spellings are incorrect. So give preference to option A. Next is a question based on, identifying the correctly punctuated sentence. So punctuations we have, and this I feel is the trickiest question of this lot. There is a small catch. If you can just solve this question through elimination also, I think in all likelihood you'll be able to solve it. So look at option A. She said, comma, I can't wait for the weekend. Now the thing is, when it comes to direct speech, the nested dialogue needs to be inside the quotation marks, right? Single quotation marks preferably. All right, but it's not given here, so cancel this. Here it is given, but then this exclamation mark needs to come within the quotation marks, right? So I can't wait for the weekend, exclamation mark, and then you end the quotations. So option B is also out. Now option C says she said, and we definitely need a comma after said. After the reporting verb, we need to put a comma, which is missing here. And therefore, what we are left with is option D, making option D the best option choice. You see these like small, things that are sort of just latent here. If you're able to spot them, you'll be able to solve this. But it might take you a little longer to solve this particular question. And the last question is based on subject verb agreement of sorts. So we have to focus on opportunities. The opportunities in terms of the numbers of places in universities, dash, simply not enough. An R would come here because this verb is going to refer to this subject in the beginning. The opportunities, which is plural and therefore are, making option B the best option choice. So with this, we are done analyzing the questions. The questions on the whole are super easy, very simple. It's like you can just go into the hall unprepared, but please don't take these words literally. I'm just talking about the level or the standard of this particular mock set. Do prepare thoroughly, especially for the topics that you see are being repeated throughout these 6 sample papers provided, right? I hope the analysis is helpful. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.